Community is an essential part of what will make us entrepreneurs, business owners, solopreneurs successful. And yet crafting a successful community with high engagement, high value is sometimes an elusive goal line for many of us. And that's why today on Amplify Your Marketing Message, I'm super excited to bring you our guest. We're going to be talking about how to build a thriving online community platform. Because truly, I believe so firmly, bring the human back into the business and let's connect people to people, because intimacy and relationships are truly the biggest competitive advantage and honestly, a heck of a lot more fun on the journey. So welcome to our program. We're going to introduce you today to John Stange. Super excited to have him here. He was referred to my network from someone else, and that's just about the power of community and relationships. John, welcome to our show today.
It's good to be with you. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about, how did you first off really start to be a maestro and a collaborator and a person who can set communities on fire in all the good ways? Talk to us a little bit about what does it mean to build community and to be a good steward?
Well, it's interesting because in this generation right now, in this era of my life, I have the opportunity to do so many of these things online, and so many of these opportunities are really special because when you're doing this online, you have the opportunity to reach many people all at once. But my background is actually in church ministry. I started my adult life as a local church pastor, and really learned the value of building community in that context, where I had the opportunity to lead groups of people and try to introduce new people and assimilate new people into the context of what we were doing. And now in the online space, it's very much the same thing, where we have the opportunity, I have the opportunity to introduce people to each other, to invite people to work together. Sometimes we do that in a volunteer capacity. Sometimes we do that in a paid capacity. But I love trying to build community. I love introducing new people to each other. And but that's my background. That's how I got started in really understanding the value of doing that and having to do that very much in person, face to face.
It's interesting because I think, especially through the light of the last couple of years, this disconnectedness was already in movement before the world fell into a pandemic. And one of the things that we crave is connection. And I think I have this conversation with a lot of my current clients about how do you connect people? And I want to talk a little bit about the foundation, because coming from that person to person, moving to the online, coming to the place of faith-based, where it's like, how do we see the best in each other? And how do we create open conversations? What do you think makes a great community? And how do you know you're either in one or you are curating one?
I think there's a variety of things that a great community needs to have. I think a lot of times when people join an online community, the ironic thing is they don't always come for community right away. They oftentimes come for information. So even in the context of the online community that I lead at Platform Launchers, most people, when they first join it, are looking for information. They just want to learn about the process of online platform development. What are the mechanics of it? What are the details? And then they discover that as they not only have the opportunity to meet me, they get to meet other people that are in our community. And that becomes something different. And it goes from information to inspiration. And so people are inspired by one another. And then in the end, they end up with accountability that helps them to achieve their goals much, much quicker. And so I think information, inspiration, and accountability are three pieces that are a huge part of a successful online community. But you also have to have a leader who has a vision, and then that same leader needs to protect the culture of the community. Because if the culture isn't protected and if a vision isn't communicated, an online community could start to become aimless, where people wonder, why are we even gathering together? Is there a central message or a theme or a task or something like that we're attempting to do? Or are we just getting together to have conversation, which is fine in and of itself. But I think a lot of times for an online community to really thrive, you have to have a mixture of all of those elements, particularly the information, inspiration, and accountability as they work together.
I love that you started also with a piece of vision, because I think, when we say, well, I want community, it's one thing. It sort of sits at 50,000 feet. to really see movement, which is a big part of what I talk about here on this program, I'm amplifying, and that's a movement in itself. It's a vibration. It is about getting closer, intimate, and saying, what is it we want to do here? What is it we want to craft? And I love that you talk about start with a vision and you must hold that vision, set the rules of engagement and lead it. It's so important then to see, what are the audience, if you will, in this case, community members needing from this. And I love that, when we looked at traditional online communities, whether they're Facebook groups or on platforms such as the one you create, I think what's interesting is they said, what did you go in there for? Sometimes it's a feeling of a hit and run. I came in to get something and get out. But you're right. The spillover effect is, wait, if I slow down and there is value created, I start to say, tell me more. And that's where you start to move in those three things, which you're saying is essential to see longevity, because the goal of community is renewal. Renewal, expansion, and impact. So when you're building communities, and that's obviously what you do, why is it important to have a process so that we get the results we're seeking? And what do you guide people? What's some of the most surprising or essential things that people need to think about when they're designing a platform and creating a space? You want people to say, come hang out and stay a long time.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that I've learned in observing other leaders and entrepreneurs who really have a successful community, they usually are walking people through some foundational steps that need to be walked through in order to build what they're trying to build. And so when I broke down what I wanted to attempt to communicate to people when they were trying to build their own online platform, I kind of broke it down into 5 Ds, and I usually refer to them as like just the 5 Ds of online platform development. The first is discovering your message. The second is delivering your content. The third is developing your tribe. The fourth is deploying your team, and then the fifth is deriving your income. And you notice that I put derive your income last. A lot of people, when they get into online entrepreneurial spaces, that's the first thing they're thinking about. But there's a lot of foundational things that go way before that. If you're not clear about your message, you're not going to really have an understanding of where you're trying to take things, what you're trying to even communicate in general.
So true.
It is true. And then you got to figure out the practical considerations of how you want to deliver that content. So do you want to be a podcaster? Do you want to create video? Do you want to create written content? Do you want to have a combination of all of those things? Do you want to do group coaching or individual coaching or any of those things? And so you have to think practically, how do I want to actually deliver this? I think from there, as things start to grow and expand, you need to start working toward developing your tribe. And what I mean by that is there are going to be certain people that are attracted to what you're communicating. And so you want to be someone who's very intentional to develop those that are connecting with what you're communicating. And you want to help them to grow. You want to invest in them. You want to bring them together if you're able to do so. And then from there, if you want what you're doing to expand further, I think a lot of times at that point, it's important to start developing a team, to really start thinking about who can I surround myself with that maybe enjoys doing the type of things that I don't enjoy doing. So I could focus on content creation or community development or even marketing or whatever it may be. And so you surround yourself with your team. And I think when those things are in place, you're in a better spot to actually turn what you've created online into something that produces a stable and steady income. But that's the process that I try and encourage our members to walk through, from delivering their message all the way, or discovering their message, to delivering it and then discovering what their income streams can be from that message as they communicate it.
What I love about this, and it's an awesome framework, I think that simplifies things. It keeps us focused on the pillars to create repeatable success, which is ultimately how we scale successfully. I love the intentional piece of this, because I often, talk a lot about on this platform, audience building. The goal is to help people identify, am I in the right room? And if I'm in the right room, how can I contribute? How can I add value? And yes, how can I receive as well? When you have that, you can start to feel, you talk about fans or advocates or other people, and it starts to snowball. if you can stay intimate to the conversations that are happening in this space, this community, what really is beautiful is that you can start to see ways to monetize that
Mhm.
feel in integrity, that add and continue to support. We are better together. And that's ultimately what will be the deciding factor whether people stay in your community or not. And it
Mhm.
is okay if the wrong people are not in the room that they leave.
Mhm.
It's making space for new ones. So when you're working with your clients, talk to us a little bit about the platform, because one of the things that I think we've been having a lot of conversations, certainly in the last couple of years, is to own a platform where you build this community, or whether you're borrowing somebody else's, and
Right.
the risks that are inherent when you don't control this space, whether it's digital or in person. Talk to us about this, because I think this is a really interesting thing our audience needs to hear as they're making their plans
Mhm.
to create movements with their audience.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that if they're going to create some sort of a platform, I think many people think that that's going to somehow center around social media primarily. And when I got involved in podcasting and creating online content, I did not focus on social media. I don't think social media is bad. I think it's a useful tool, but I don't think it's the only way. And like you said a moment ago, it's rented space, right? It's not
Mhm.
something that you own, and so you don't have the opportunity to, sometimes pivot or do some of the things that you want to do. And in some cases, there's certain subjects that you might want to talk about, but you're not necessarily given the liberty to do that. And so there's a lot more freedom when you own the platform that you're actually utilizing. You can invite people to be part of it that you want to be part of it. You can own the content. You're not dependent on an algorithm changing that makes it so that only some of your audience sees some of your content, and then other members of your audience don't see it. And so when I help people understand the process of building an online platform, I want them to know essentially what worked for me. So one of the big things that worked for me was being very, very consistent with the content that I was producing, and producing it in ways that I enjoyed producing. My favorite way to produce content, I guess I have several favorite ways if I'm honest, but my favorite, my true favorite, is podcasting. I love podcasting, and very, very close to that is the written word as well. I've written multiple books and things like that, and I do a lot of blogging, and so I do like written content. But podcasting is where I feel like I've been able to make the biggest dent, or the most impact. At this point now, my shows have been downloaded over 10 million times. And when I first started recording those, I had no idea that that was going to be in the future. Right now, as I'm talking to you, I'm in my home office. It's in the lower level of my home. It's nothing impressive. And yet through that medium, I've been able to communicate with people all throughout the world, as I've just been consistent in doing that. And so I try and show people the value of consistency, and then figuring out what's going to be your favorite way of delivering this content, but do it in a way that you actually have the rights to it. Do it in a way that it fits with your overall platform. Don't solely rely on social media or other platforms that can, turn your message off just with the switch of a button. And then before you know it, you lose the opportunity to create content or share that content with the audience that you've built.
This is such an interesting thing. There's two really gold nuggets I want to draw out there, because the first thing, I get those phone calls all the time. Panicked business owners that saying, I've just been hacked. I've just lost my platform, or my business that I've been building for years is now on the banned list if we can't talk about that on
Yeah.
social media.
Hmm.
And what happens in a nanosecond is coming to a screeching halt. And they keep looking for, what do I do? And I said, you start again, and
Hmm.
wiser.
Yeah.
And that's never a comfortable conversation. And they're all like, Christine, no, seriously. I'm like, no, seriously. You need to control the message. You
Hmm.
need to control the platform. That's why I love that you're thinking broader. What's also what I heard, which was important to talk about, is when you start a community, when you start building content, you're not necessarily seeing what it will evolve to. You said, I didn't start thinking I would have this 10 million downloaded platform, and
Hmm.
I didn't get there from one step. I
Hmm.
stayed consistent. It built over time, because you need to remember, when your audience building and community, is that not everyone's ready today to be visible. Society is changing. Our conversation is changing. People are in different places on their business journey. But the great thing is, if you own the resource and you have a central ecosystem what happens is you can go back to content. And I will tell you, from a scalability point of view, it's really important to have that long repertoire that you can dig into when you want to take time out of your business, or simply realize everything old is new again.
Mm-hmm.
And what was relevant before, and I think as business owners, I said, I didn't get here as you see today. I have all kinds of earlier drafts, earlier executions, earlier podcasts, earlier videos, earlier speaking opportunities. Your ideal audience, the community, is all at different stages. And they want to see the evolution. It's actually one of the things we will, as human beings, celebrate about each other. So I want to ask you, someone who helps people create the platforms of building community, when's the right time to think about moving and doing this as you guide people to the ultimate result of stay the course, do something amazing, create a movement?
I was talking to one of our newest members in Platform Launchers just the other day, and one of the things that he said to me, he just joined our group a little over a week ago, and he said, I'm at a spot now, I think he's in his early 50s, and he said, the truth is, I should have started this several years ago. I just didn't know where to start. And so he's at a spot now where he's recognized he just has a burning desire to communicate something that he feels very passionate about. Now, his message is different from mine, and his message is different from other people that are in our group. But for him, this is a very specific subject that he's dialed in on that's had a huge impact on his own life, and he wants to communicate it with others and help others to understand the type of things that he started to understand. And so for many people, I think when you start recognizing that you have something valuable that you want to communicate with others, and you're willing to do so generously, and you're willing to stay focused on the needs of those that you're trying to serve, not just your own needs, I think that tells me that your head's in a good spot to start communicating your content. I think when people are content creators that have almost like a selfish perspective, or they're just doing it as a vanity type thing, that tells me, all right, you're not quite ready. You don't have the emotional maturity to understand what it's like to encourage or influence an audience of listeners or readers. But if you could do these things from a perspective that is focused on those who's going to consume it, it's focused on those that want to find value in what you're communicating, and it's not focused on you just trying to get your own name out there, or just some sort of vanity metric, I would say that at that point, you're at a spot where you're more likely to produce something that's going to have some long-term value, instead of it being something that for a little while you dabble in as a hobby, and then before you know it, it disappears.
Well, and I think what's important, if you hear that message loudly, it's about how do I be, not only we talked earlier, stewardship, but how do I honor the journey that I started and have the commitment. And I think what's important, whether you're talking podcasting, whether you're talking an online community or an offline one, what's important is you as the listener and your business decide, is this a strategic vehicle that I want to play in because it is a path that feels right for me? And when you do that, stay the course. And I'm going to encourage you to go work with John and his team to help create something amazing. One of my favorite things I always ask all of my guests here on the show is to talk about you as a business owner, because obviously you've come a long way in your journey. But what is working right now for you to create more impact and seeing amplification in what you're doing and the work that you are putting out into the marketplace?
Well, from a marketing standpoint, from the standpoint of actually reaching other people, one of the things that I think is fascinating, and I was just talking about this last evening with our members, is the idea of creating your own affiliate program. And that's something I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but I have to tell you, from a marketing standpoint with platform launchers, I reward the advocates in our group. So when people in our group feel like, hey, you know what, this was useful content for me, and then they share it with other people, I have an affiliate program that I built within our own community that rewards people for doing that. And I find that to be it feels like just a generous form of marketing, but it also creates some real incentive for some people to actually, just take the time to let other people know about something that's available. And so I'd encourage people to consider setting aside some of your budget to actually reward people that are your advocates. Create your own affiliate program. A lot of times I see people say, hey, if I generate a certain amount of income from a new client or a new customer that comes to me, I'm going to pay 10% or whatever they say. A lot of times I hear 10% is a number that's shared out there, and that's fine. But I decided when we were starting Platform Launchers, I thought, if I'm gonna build an affiliate program, I want to double that. So I do 20%. And I feel like I've never regretted being generous. Anytime you choose to be generous, it always seems like it comes back to you more, many times over from the generosity you even feel like you showed. And so that's something that I think has had a major impact on the dynamics of the business that I'm running, and even the culture of the community that I'm leading.
I absolutely love that you've picked this. It's an interesting conversation. It's very timely. It won't be when we air this, because one of the things that I was recently asked to speak on somebody else's platform, and I didn't go in with the expectation of, to your point, saying if I do this, then you do this, because I said that's horse trading. It's not collaboration. It's not co-creation, which I would rather do. And I sent them a note and said, I'm sending you something. And they're like, why? I'm like, because you opened a door for me. And I want to say thank you for that. And it just feels awesome. So I love that I agree with you. You never regret being generous. So I want you to think, audience, about how can you reward advocates? How can you create good faith, good spirit, good pay it forward attitudes? Because it will ultimately absolutely have an impact in your business. And hopefully, I don't have a lot of doubt here, but I would say it also will help you feel a whole heck of a lot better about your day-to-day journey that you're on. John, it has been absolutely fantastic to have you as our guest. We've been talking about building a thriving community online through platforms. John, how do people find you?
The best way to find me would be to visit platformlaunchers.com. They could send me an email as well at john@platformlaunchers.com. And I'm pretty easy to find right over there at the website.
Guys, I want to invite you all. Think about how community could be something not only you contribute to, but maybe you craft and curate in your business. This has been another episode of Amplify Your Marketing Message. Be sure to subscribe for future episodes, because what we are here doing is helping you have the tools to connect to more people, your people, moving them forward to creating that epic change and the results that we want to see in the world. It starts with self-leadership. Be sure to subscribe. We will see you all on our next episode. John, thanks for being our guest today.
Thank you.